Hi, and welcome to the final day of Keysight University Live. I'm Daniel Bogdanoff, and I'll be your host for this event for the last day of the event. It's day 11. We have given away like 90 pieces of test gear so far. We've had 10 interviews, 10 videos, and we have one more day just for you. Thank you all to everyone who's been here so far with us each day. I know there's quite a few of you who've shown up to either every day of the event or almost every day of the event, and it really means a lot to us, and we really appreciate having you here. Today is just like every other event day as part of Keysight University Live. We have a few things coming up. We have an interview coming up. We have prizes coming up. We have a couple other highlights coming up that we have in store for you saved up, so make sure to stick around. Today's interview is with Gianpaolo, talking about 5G and Open RAN or O-RAN, so I'm really excited about that. Our last 5G interview went really well. That was like on day 4 or something like that. You can go through. On the website, you can actually go see each day's event. So let's take a look at the web page. We can pop over to that. This is what the event page looks like each day. There's live chat that the team is monitoring. Thank you, team. And you can see the live stream here, which I obviously haven't played yet because that would be weird. But on the page today, there's a couple things. We have the video for today. This is a super cool video that we did. We walked through the lab that's literally right below my feet right now, where they test our prototype equipment. So I'll maybe talk a little bit more about that in a bit. A couple other things you should check out. There's a Get My Daily entry. If you're watching this live and haven't hit this button yet, go click that button because I'm going to do some prizes, some of the last prize drawing during the interview. So clicking this button gives you one last chance to get an extra entry for the prize drawing. There's a couple more prizes up for grabs. And also make sure to hit that Get Exclusive Access button. We have some really cool things planned out for you. I'll share a little bit about what we have coming after the interview, so make sure to check those out. And of course, at the bottom of the page, we have the Smart Bench Essentials Challenge. That entry period is now closed. We're announcing the last winner today, but you can go browse some of the entries. We also have a ton of 5G courses over on Keysight University, so go check those out as well if you want to keep learning about 5G. But first, stick around for the interview, and we'll talk about O-RAN. We have a whole course on Keysight University about O-RAN and Open RAN, so make sure to check that out. And it's time for the interview with Gianpaolo. We're going to talk about 5G O-RAN, so check that out. We'll roll it in a second. At the end of that interview, we also have a little featurette about RCal. So you've heard about calibrating VNAs, and we talked about that in the paperclip video, but you can also now calibrate and move your calibration reference plane for your signal analyzers with RCal. It makes some really amazing measurements for 5G, so we have a little featurette on that after the 5G interview. Let's go ahead and take a look at our interview with Gianpaolo. So we're pushing up on the end of our time here, but if there's one thing I've learned working in the tech industry is that even as we're starting to deploy the latest, greatest new thing, everyone is always thinking about what's next. So what is after this? What's coming? Where are we going with this in the long run?
Yeah, that's a great question, Daniel. Well, clearly after 5G, there is 6G. And actually, it's happening. There is quite a bit of research already starting in that area. And that would, on itself, require a completely different conversation. And maybe we should have a conversation on that. But, staying maybe within the theme of network infrastructure. And what does it mean, 6G for network infrastructure? I believe that some of the themes that we already see emerging now are going to be actually fully deployed and prevalent in 6G. In particular, there is one, which is the wide adoptions of artificial intelligence as a way to manage, optimize, and orchestrate the network. We are just at the beginning of that. I mentioned at the beginning of our talk the radio intelligence controller, where the service providers and the vendors provide essentially some intelligent way of managing the network that goes beyond a state machine type of approach. And some of that innovation is relying on artificial intelligence analysis of patterns of the network flow.
So we're sorting out a couple issues with the interview file. So I'm gonna stall a little bit while that happens. A couple things that we can look at while we are resetting up that file in the system. Something glitched, so we'll figure it out. But we had that interview all ready for you. It's on 5G. Open RAN with Gianpaolo. Is a really cool interview. I'm really excited to bring it to you. I'm getting the thumbs up that it's ready to go. Is that what I'm getting? So now, We are going to run a version that has a typo of Giampaolo's name, so I apologize in advance, Giampaolo. But we're joined today by Giampaolo Tardioli. So here is that OpenRAN interview. Everything else should be good to go. Here you go. We're joined today by Giampaolo Tardioli, who is the Vice President of our Network Infrastructure Group inside of our Commercial Communications Group at Keysight. He is an expert and intimately involved in a lot of the 5G stuff that's happening, a lot of the bleeding edge, cutting edge stuff today. Giampaolo, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you, Daniel. My pleasure.
So when I picture a 5G base or just a cellular base station in general, in my brain, I kind of picture this like shed at the base of a tower with full of hardware, but that's not necessarily what that's going to look like going forward for 5G. So can you talk about the overall network architecture from like a UE or user and device to the core and how that's changing for 5G?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, when you look at the network, the way it used to be and the way it is somehow today and versus how it's going to be in the future is going to look very, very different, drastically different, I would say. And there are two main, excuse me, forces really driving the change. It's virtualizations on one hand and disaggregation. And these two forces combined are going to change not only the infrastructure topology, but also the type of players that we're going to see in the market going forward. So let me talk about disaggregation first. So the disaggregation means what used to be a monolithic, fully integrated type of base station with all the different functions designed together, often in a hardware fashion, are now being split in multiple blocks, and each of the blocks are regulated through interfaces that are now being standardized. If you are in this business, I mean, the last year and a half, you have seen the growing interest in Open RAN. Alliance groups like ORAN have been formed in order to regulate these interfaces. So as these interfaces become standard, there will be multiple players that will start disaggregating the base station and offering different pieces that are supposed to work together with each other. So disaggregation, big driver. In parallel with that, and augmenting the disruption of disaggregation, it's virtualization. And what it means is that what used to be capabilities were delivered through hardware are now being run essentially through software, running on off-the-shelf type of computing platform like Intel platform, or maybe if you need more performance, could be a GPU type of platform. So these two forces together are fundamentally changing the way a network will be built and also the way it will be deployed.
So before, as you worked through the stack, essentially, you kind of had these proprietary interfaces between layers and between equipment, and it was maybe all in one, maybe separate, but still pretty proprietary. And with ORAN, we're seeing kind of an opening up of that architecture. Is that fair to say?
That is correct. So what, as I mentioned before, there are a few building blocks that are being defined with very specific interfaces. There's the radio unit, then there is the distributed unit, and there is an interface between the RU and the DU, radio unit for RU and distributed unit for DU, that is being defined, and that is defined by the ORAN standard. Then there is the central unit, the CU, that basically connects the DU to the rest of the network. And then after that, there is core network, which is technically not part of the radio access portion, but it's the remaining part of the network before you do get into the internet protocols and the data centers. So RU, DU, and CUs are the building blocks, if you will, with standard specifications of the new network. And then there is what is called the radio intelligence controller, which is where the intelligence of the algorithms of the network are going to be customized by the different service providers.
We've heard a lot about edge computing. Is there an edge computing component to the RU and the DU and the CU?
Correct, there is, and that goes back to one of the objectives of 5G. 5G promises, among other things, is to bring a much lower latency for some specific applications. And there are many applications that you can imagine, like robotic controls in an industrial environment, or healthcare for remote surgery, that requires a very tight latency. In order to achieve that latency, you have to have a flexible way of deploying your computing power in a network. Clearly, you don't want to do all the computing centralized and moving data back and forth if you want to have a very low latency. So one of the aspects of the ORAN standards and in general of this new architecture is that there are very different interfaces that are being defined, and operators can define and choose which interface move the computational interface in order to achieve latency objectives. So it's a trade-off between the amount of data that you want to consume locally and the data rate that you are willing to move up into the centralized network. So it's a trade-off, and now with the creations of this, it's called functional splits. So you have different names, option 1 to option 8. You, as a service provider, you can get to choose how your network can be optimized for data rate versus latency.
And so it seems like the more processing you could do at the edge of the network, the less data you have to transfer, and then you have potentially lower latency. Is that how I understand it?
Correct. That's the fundamental premises. If you have, let's take an applications like that can be very compute intensive, like augmented reality or virtual reality. There is absolutely no value for getting all of that data generated, by your virtual glasses up to the core that could be several thousands of miles away from your house and back with the response. So what you want to do there is to have a very close capability of doing the computing locally, and then just sending just a stream down amount of data back and forth. That's a perfect example of an application that would benefit from edge computing. And we are seeing this an area where maybe the third force that I should mention is the cloudification of the network. We see now companies like Amazon or Microsoft with their cloud platform offering edge computing capabilities where they can augment the computing power of their cloud offering to essentially integrate with telecom industries.
Fascinating. So we're starting to see these, like, I'll say server farm companies, but that's probably not the right term. But they're starting to branch into this almost network provider type of role, or are they partnering with existing network providers to make sure that the architecture works?
Yeah, that's it is fascinating indeed. It's both actually. So there are some partnership. For instance, if you look into Verizon has a partnership with AWS, where they are using AWS wavelength edge computing capabilities in order to provide a low latency experience to the Verizon customers that need it. So rather than building, data centers and computing centers close to the customers that need that extra accelerations, they are relying on actually buying it from AWS. So that's an example of collaborations. But there are some other examples where more and more this type of web scales company are getting more and more of the capabilities to build an entire network. There have been recent acquisitions, for instance, from Microsoft that have now the capability to implement in a cloud environment their core network. So I see both trends to go forward.
And you mentioned earlier the move to virtualization. Obviously, these go hands in hand. Can you talk about what is being virtualized and the benefits of virtualizing versus dedicated hardware?
Yes. So one of the biggest changes when you look at 4G versus 5G from a network point of view is that from the very beginning in 5G, the core network has been defined and specified as being cloud native. So in other words, all the specifications were being written with the intent to have an implementation of the core capabilities of the network in a cloud environment, not in a virtualized, but in a cloud native environment. So from the very beginning, those are being written with the cloud in mind. So that's a big shift. And that means that now the innovation space is moving from what used to be more hardware centric to software centric. So we see more companies that are, their core competence being software, like I mentioned, Microsoft, that are now entering the space because they can innovate and they can provide differentiation now that it's largely a software business. As we move from core up towards the edge of the network, there are going to be additional elements of the network that are going to be virtualized. The CU that I mentioned before, depending on different use cases, could also be virtualized. In fact, we see several implementation of it in a 5G environment being virtual. And we see companies that also start tackling the DU as well, especially in low data rate type of use cases.
Interesting. You mentioned splits. Can you speak a little more to what the splits are? What is being split and where is it being split?
Yeah, that's a good question. So fundamentally, you have the capability in a network to identify different interface points in which you can separate physically, some pieces of the network. A typical, split that has been in the industry for a while, but has never been standardized, was the connections between the radio and the baseband unit with a connection that was called the CPRI. Now that connection, that split between the radio portion and the baseband portion has been standardized. And if you decide to split at that level in the protocol stack, it's called 7.2. So there are a series of type of nomenclatures as you go through. But fundamentally is at which point you want to separate physically in the deployment of the network different functionalities of the communication protocol stack from the physical layer up to layer 7. The closer you get to the physical layer, the more you have data rate limitations. So, you need to be able to support high data rate, but the more efficient you are in your implementation of the network.
Okay. Having these splits and opening up the interfaces between parts of the stack, especially to different companies, sounds like it would be pretty complex. If it's all locked in with one company, the departments can kind of work together and figure out any problems to make it work. But what sort of trouble are people running into as this gets opened up to like white label hardware and things like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. The big interest, at least I would say the initial interest behind this disaggregation virtualizations from the service providers is that they see this as an opportunity for lowering their capex budget, because they expect that there would be more competitions, competing for the different pieces of the network, and then being able to buy an RU from one vendor, a DU from another, driving prices down and then integrate it. That it's happening to a large extent. We see an increased number of participants in the market that specialize on the radio versus the DU versus other aspects. But the challenge is that now some of the system integrations that used to be part of the vendor, that provides the integrated solution, is now moving to some of the service providers. And some of the service providers are taking the challenge upon themselves, so they are developing expertise. Some others are outsourcing that to maybe system integrator type of companies or consultant companies. Some others are looking at Keysight to provide that expertise. So I think this is an opportunity for us to elevate and enhance our capability to provide value beyond a single test equipment.
That's a good point. So how does a company and a service provider, or anyone in the space, go about making sure that their device or their systems actually work according to spec?
So usually they rely on companies like Keysight to provide a conformance and interoperability environment in an automation fashion, and they start engaging with us. So it starts with these service providers being very active in the standards, so make sure that there is a very strong conformance regime that is defined, and then they want to make sure that there are companies like Keysight that can provide those tools for conformance, and then push their vendors to basically conform to these test regimes.
Okay. And there must be some way to test like a specific slice. Are there tools that work their way all the way up and down the chain to kind of act as
Yeah,
both sides
absolutely.
of the party?
And not only you, as I mentioned before, there are different interfaces that the service providers decide to implement depending on what type of optimizations of the network they are looking for. So that means that there should be a capability for companies like Keysight to provide a broad set of solutions that can provide that performance, conformance, interoperability testing across the entire spectrum of the network. And that's why Keysight has introduced recently a very comprehensive end-to-end portfolio of solutions for ORAN. It's called the Keysight Open RAN Architect platform. And if you look at this platform, it's really untouched in the market in terms of being able to provide end-to-end solutions from the chipset providers of this ecosystem to the NAMs, the RU, DU makers, to the service providers, but also to the test labs that have the challenge of integrating all of these solutions together to put together a conformance certification.
Okay. Where are there hiccups? Where do we see the most people run into challenges?
Well, some of the challenges are definitely going to be in the system integrations, despite having a conformance regime that has been established. This industry has not been trained or used to have interoperability type of exchanges. So there will be some maturity, for the various industries and vendors to learn how to operate in an interoperable fashion. There will be some use cases where the technology still cannot provide the same level of performance that can be provided by a fully integrated solution. So from that point of view, to the extent that those use cases are still very prevalent and important to the service providers, we are going to face a prolonged phase of a mixed type of implementation. And that on itself is a challenge because some of the promises of the CapEx gains might not be realized until you have a full switch. On the other hand, to counter some of these challenges, I definitely see an increased amount of government and policy activations in the space, where governments across the world, especially in Europe and US, are pushing very hard for the creation of an ecosystem behind this disaggregated network, because they see this as a center for innovation. Whenever you have a switch movement from hardware to software, you have the opportunity for creating innovation in a way that it's a order of magnitude higher. We have seen it happening on the device side. 20 years ago, we had maybe 13 years ago, we had no smartphone. And now you see what has created, in terms of innovation, the creation of a platform where software can be used for innovate.
So, what are some good skill sets that people who have been doing this look back and wish they had come into their work with this type of background, or what sort of reading should people be doing? Where should they be brushing up to get better at making this stuff work?
Yeah, there are a few areas that are challenging. You have now domains that used to be separate. The RF expert, the radio access interface. I just talked to an antenna versus I'm an Ethernet guy. I'm a protocol transport layer only. Now they're forced to talk together and they have to establish the same language. And this is actually one of the areas that we see us as Keysight, because we have both a set of capabilities and we are bringing them together. We add a lot of value because we are able to bridge really even different sections of our customers that they used to be pretty much separate.
Has that been causing trouble for folks internally inside of companies, or are people pulling in experts from other places to build up their own in-house expertise, or what does that like employment infrastructure look like these days?
Well, we have seen quite a bit of reorganization happening at some of the top, NAMs accounts, as they try to react to this new scenario. Clearly, it's a challenging transition for them because they have to, on one hand, protect their installed base and their traditional business. At the same time, they want to be able to migrate so that they can be engaged in this new paradigm. So we have seen the creations of new divisions within our set of customers, like they are focused on cloud RAN, or they're focusing on private network. They're trying to intercept this shift in a way that maximize their value creation.
After this, what's coming? Where are we going with this in the long run?
Yeah, that's a great question, Daniel. Well, clearly after 5G, there is 6G. And actually, it's happening. There is quite a bit of research already starting in that area, and that would, on itself, require a completely different conversation. And maybe we should have a conversation on that. But stay maybe within the theme of network infrastructure. And what does it mean 6G for network infrastructure? I believe that some of the themes that we already see emerging now are going to be actually fully deployed and prevalent in 6G. In particular, there is one, which is the wide adoptions of artificial intelligence as a way to manage, optimize, and orchestrate the network. We are just at the beginning of that. I mentioned at the beginning of our talk the radio intelligence controller, where the service providers and the vendors provide essentially some intelligent way of managing the network that goes beyond a state machine type of approach. And some of that innovation is relying on artificial intelligence analysis of patterns of the network data flow. We believe that 6G will bring that to the mainstream, and it will be actually the only way that the orchestration of the network happens, where resources, both from a computational point of view and also from where you do the split of the network, because it's largely driven by software, are going to be adapted on the fly by artificial intelligence type of algorithms. So it sounds a little futuristic, but it's actually already here in many ways.
Well, I welcome our future robot overlords. So it sounds like there's a lot more coming in the space in the coming years. So I'm excited to see what happens for sure. Thank you so much for your time and your expertise. It's been really great having you.
It's been great. Thank you, Daniel.
So what a great interview. Thank you for bearing with us. We had some technical difficulties there, but we got it. We pulled some audibles on the fly and still got that out. So thank you to the team here. GP, what an awesome interview. We have a ton more information about Open RAN and 5G over on Keysight University. There's a link for a 5G course series down at the bottom of the Keysight University Live page. We also have a very short featurette about one of our new innovations here at Keysight called RCal. You've heard about eCal for VNA calibration. We have something similar that we just came out with for RCal. We've never done anything like this in the industry. No one has done anything like this in the industry for signal analyzers. So we'll take a quick 1-minute featurette video about RCal.
In wide bandwidth 5G transceivers, phase errors across the analysis bandwidth degrade EVM performance. Improve your test receiver system's absolute amplitude accuracy by an order of magnitude with Keysight's U9361 RCal receiver calibrator. Here's how. RCal moves the measurement plane from the signal analyzer input to the output of your device under test. This ensures that your design parameters apply only to your 5G device design and are not burdened by the cables and fixtures in between. The RCal receiver calibrator automatically calibrates out linear impairments from fixtures, cables, and adapters in test systems using Keysight's X-Series signal analyzers. If you are making RF signal analyzer measurements at 100 MHz bandwidths or higher, you can benefit from using the new U9361 RCal receiver calibrator. With frequency options up to 110 GHz and up to 5 GHz bandwidth, the RCal receiver calibrator can be tailored for your 5G needs.
So RCal, it's super cool. There's a whole video series over on the Keysight main YouTube channel about RCal. I think there's like 8 or 10 1-minute videos about different aspects of RCal. We figured this was a good fit today because it's 5G, but the ability to calibrate your measurement plane for a signal analyzer is brand new. And speaking of brand new, we have a a new thing that we also do on our oscilloscopes and some of our other high-end gear called measurement disaggregation, where you can actually take your measurements and throw them up on the cloud. The team asked me to put together a short kind of advertisement video on that, and I had some fun with it, so I thought I'd share it with you on the last day here. So let's take a look at this measurement disaggregation concept video.
I cannot believe I have to work the weekend to get this done. I hope I have enough time. Well, could be worse. There could be managers here to bug us about our timelines, but this will be quick. Now you've done it, future guy. You've summoned a manager. Oh, I'm not the manager. I'm the narrator. Why do we need a narrator? The video didn't really work without one. That's dumb. Whose fault is that? Well, back to work. Yep, back to the grind. Grind? That's because you're using the old school measurement process. It's outdated. I'm doing just fine, thanks. Well, that's what you think, but all of your measurements and analysis are made on the scope itself. It's not the fastest option. Before today, engineers did both signal acquisition and signal analysis on the same physical hardware. It was all done serially, isolated inside of the instrument. Isn't that how everybody does it? What are you working on? I can't quite see. That's worse. Oh, you're working on the PCIe test compliance suite too? Yeah. Well, since we're both running the same test, we're gonna be here a few hours at least. There's so many tests. I'll call it a lunch order. What do you want? Nothing for me. I should be done in an hour. I'm gonna go pick up that vintage Cybertruck I've been looking for. They just don't make them like they used to. An hour? That's not possible. I paid good money for this setup and it is the best option out there. There's just a lot of data to process. Oh, it's possible. I'm using this new measurement technique called measurement disaggregation. Yeah, that. Man, it's hot in here. Easy for you to say. I didn't name it. I didn't name it either, but instead of doing all of my measurement processing on the scope, I'm using some Keysight software to separate the acquisition from the analysis. The number crunching happens on the cloud. So I'm all set up. I'm just gonna go ahead and send these measurements up to the cloud. To the cloud. You can also use a local server. Yeah, but the cloud. I love the cloud. Uh-oh, seen this before. He's gonna be a minute. What's happening is his scope is allowed to focus on what it does best, acquiring signals. His cloud software can focus on what it does best, processing data fast. This happens in parallel instead of series, which saves a lot of time. That toolchain sounds like a nightmare. I'm gonna stick with what I know, and I know that this is an exceptional scope that makes exceptional measurements. You still need that amazing hardware to acquire signals, and the tests get the same results with measurement disaggregation. You're simply using different processors, but it's faster. Well, my compliance tests are done. Time to go pick up that vintage Cybertruck. I'm only 20% of the way through my compliance testing. At this rate, I'm gonna miss my appointment with the phone company. I'm getting a second landline installed just for a dedicated dial-up connection. What time is it? I forgot, this doesn't tell time. You're really done? Yeah, my compliance testing has been up to 5 times faster since I installed the measurement disaggregation software. And my data is automatically hooked into my analytics package, so it's easier to visualize and analyze the data. Do you want help? It's literally just a software upgrade since you already have the scope in the compliance package. I just need to find the link. Don't you have a link? Isn't that what you're here for or something? Yes, my time has come, just like the simulations. We're done. Let's get out of here. So what was that Cybertruck thing you were talking about?
So that was a fun one. Normally I wouldn't share something like an advertisement like that, but we had so much fun with it, we just had to put it out there for you. Now it's time to announce the final winners for a couple things. We have the Smart Bench Essentials contest ending today. I'm announcing that winner. And the Keysight University Live sweepstakes winners. We are giving away as part of the grand prize. So we have 5 of the Smart Bench Essentials products. Those are function generator, oscilloscope, power supply, and DMM. They're all pretty affordable. You can get a full kit for like between $2,000 and $3,000 US overall. So some of the most affordable gear we've ever produced. And they use the same technology that goes into our higher end gear as well. So these are awesome. I've been playing with them for the last couple months and I use them all the time now. And we have a grand prize winner. We're giving away a 6,000. The winner gets their choice of a 6000X series oscilloscope, one of the new MXR series oscilloscopes, the 2.5 gigahertz 4-channel EXR. Mike Hoffman showed off some of those a few days back as part of Keysight University Live. The winner could also choose a vector network analyzer like this one, or an N9918A Field Fox like we saw in the car key range boosting video. So some really fantastic gear we're giving away today. We'll have had over 100 winners as part of Keysight University Live and over $300,000 in prizes. So let's start with the Smart Bench Essentials Contest prize winner. If we can look at that entry, here's what the judges had to say about the Smart Bench Essentials winner. Today's winner is Benjamin Follier. So congratulations, Benjamin. Here's what the judges had to say. Benjamin perfectly embodies the innovator and altruistic spirit that is Keysight's core. For example, at the start of the COVID pandemic, he sprang into action to create a device that inactivates the coronavirus in the air using powerful UV rays. We admire his tenacity to accomplish so much with a minimal test bench and hope that Keysight's Smart Bench Essentials will bring him much closer to realizing his dream for wireless energy transformation. So congratulations, Benjamin. We'll be in touch with you shortly. You have won the last of the Smart Bench Essentials contest. If you want to see some of the other entries, you can go down to the bottom of the Keysight University Live page and click the link. There's a whole bunch of different entries there. And you can also see and hear what the judges had to say about the other winners if you go back through the other day's live streams. The other thing, I know everybody likes swag. We have some swag for you. We have a new contest that I'd like to announce. It actually shuts down on Friday, so if you're watching this is your chance to get in. You can win a free 5G t-shirt and some Wi-Fi robot things that we're giving away. So if we can pop up that website, it is called the 5G Stump the Experts Contest. And we'll put a link in chat, we'll put a link on the page. You can also just Google Keysight Stump the Experts Contest, and you'll see this. Essentially, what we're asking you to do is enter and submit a short question about 5G to our 5G experts. Everyone who enters, the first, I think, 50 or 100 folks who enter get a free Keep Calm and 5G On t-shirt. We're also giving away some books and some Wi-Fi robot prizes that aren't mentioned here. So make sure to go check that out. I just checked this morning. There are some t-shirts still available, but you have to enter by Friday. So by the 30th, the entry's closed. So it doesn't have to be like super high quality, but you can ask our 5G experts a question, see if you can stump them. If you ask the best question, you win more than just a t-shirt. You can get like the book or the Wi-Fi stuff. So go check that out. That's the 5G contest. And it's now time to announce our final winners for Keysight University Live 2021. Again, thank you so much to everyone who's been here and joining us. It's been just a fantastic, I've had a blast, and I think based on the comments a lot of you had too. I'll also do some Q&A at the end of this stream. Okay, our Smart Bench Essentials winners, we announced 4 of them already in the video about the lab tour video. Those winners are Christopher Bridge, Brandon Clark, Casper Licinius, and William Ockert. And we have one more Smart Bench Essentials winner. They get their choice of a piece of Smart Bench Essentials gear. That winner is Charles Eck. Congratulations, Charles. We also have 5 U1282A handheld digital multimeter prizes today. 5 of them instead of 3 because it's the last day. We thought we'd throw in a couple more. Those winners are Caleb Gerber, Grant Shogren, Daniel Herman, Matthias Fetzer, and John Liete. Congratulations to those winners. And our grand prize winner who gets their choice of a VNA, a Field Fox, a 6 gigahertz 6000X series oscilloscope, or a EXR 2.5 gigahertz oscilloscope is Sergey Petrushin. Congratulations to all of our winners. We've seen some of you in the comments. I love seeing you show up here after you've won. If you have won, either this year or previous year, let us know in chat. Let us know in the comments on the videos. We just love seeing that. Post something on social. We'd love to see what else you have going for us. One thing I always try to talk about on the last day is this event is not just me. There's a whole team of people that band together to make this happen. Normally when it's not COVID time, I'll go around with a camera and get little snapshots of people, but we've been very isolated and there's some fresh faces around the country. We have people in New York, people in California, people in Texas making this happen. So thank you to the entire team. Thank you, Teresa, Richie, Christine, Linus, Toby, and the whole team. There's so many people that have gone into this program. So thank you all. And again, thank you to all of our interview folks. We've had fantastic interviews. We're going to post some of those interviews. We also have a couple bonus interviews that we're going to post on the Keysight podcast channel. So there's a Keysight podcast YouTube channel. Just Keysight Podcast is the name. Or in your favorite podcast engine, you can go to eestalktech.com, W's Talk Tech, or just search your podcast tool for Keysight, and that podcast should pop up. So we're going to put those over there, maybe a little bit of bonus commentary, something like that. And we have a couple other interviews that we can post to that as well. So go check that out. And now it's time to take some questions from chat. We've seen some really good ones. Someone asked, is there technology to heat and cool in the same chamber? So in that lab walk-around tour, we saw a bunch of different chambers. There's one you can even walk in. If we could share my laptop screen, I pulled a screenshot of a chamber. Let's see if I can get it over into that monitor. Okay. So if you look at this chamber in the background here, I believe this is the one. This one goes from 170 degrees Celsius, positive 170, to negative 170 degrees Celsius very quickly. You can see these pipes coming in, pipe in liquid nitrogen. There's essentially two chambers in one for this. There's like a heater chamber up top and a freezer chamber at the bottom. And the whole thing just like actuates up and down between the two temperatures. And we've seen things like solder balls cracking and all kinds of funky things happen when you have like a 300 or 400 degree temperature shift in a very short time. So it's like an oven, and then it pipes in liquid nitrogen down low, and it drops the thing down. It's super cool. I had to cut it out of the video just for time, and it didn't quite fit. But yes, we do have a chamber that does both heating and cooling at the same time. So that was a good question. Christoph M. says, so with all the Q&A testing, could Keysight specify the amount of abuse allowed in the specs of their gear? Is there a normalized unit like engineer slaps per days? Engineer slaps per days is my new favorite unit. We do specify some of that in the data sheets. So there's like vibration and temperature ranges. Usually it's more about calibration. There's like a calibration specification. So if you go too far in either direction, then it might invalidate your cal. And there's basically a powered off like survivability specification. And that's what we do in that lab, is figure out what those specs should be with our Halts testing. So good question. Does anyone know where is the prototype test lab that I visited? It looks strangely familiar. It is literally like if I could cut a hole in the floor below my feet, there's another floor below us, and that's where the lab is. That's where all the chambers are, and the anechoic chamber. Someone also asked about the anechoic chamber. Let me see if I can find that. Is that one of the ones, they're basically asking, like, is that one of the ones you walk in and your ears ring? It is. Some people, yeah, it's one of those ultra quiet where you can even hear your blood rushing in your ears. Yes, it is one of those. I love it. Some people get in there and kind of freak out because it's like so quiet. It really is like being in a big cave that doesn't echo. If you've never been in one, I encourage you to take some time and hop into one of those at some point. A couple more winners or questions. Let's see. We'll take a couple more. There's a couple 5G questions. I'm going to refer a lot of the 5G questions over to Keysight University. We'll talk about that in a minute before we head out. Engineer slaps per day is still my favorite part. Someone asked, is there a fuse option? What are the most expensive parts? The device emits smoke to protect the fuse. I think that's probably referring to the DMM video we did last week where you can use your DMM as a jumper. Again, not recommended, but the fuses, they're like $5. So there's a fuse in there that if you run too much current through your DMM, it pops a fuse to protect the rest of the circuitry, and that fuse blowing is probably the cheapest option versus like blowing up your device or blowing up your actual DMM. So I hope that answers your question, Andrew. A couple other things. We're mentioning Twitch. Yeah, so we did a Twitch stream 2 weeks ago. I want to do more Twitch in the future. I actually upgraded our internet so we can do more Twitch in the future. I want to do some more antenna testing with the paperclip. I got some flack in the comments of the paperclip antenna video for unraveling the paperclip before soldering it. So I got some actual pure copper paperclips that I want to test with this VNA. And I think I might do that on Twitch and then put together a little video out of that. So Keysight Labs on Twitch. If you do Twitch, you can go check that out. And we're not going anywhere just because this event is over. We're still going to keep streaming. I'm still going to keep creating videos. Again, there's a whole team here doing things like this, so we're not going anywhere. We're also almost at 100,000 subscribers on the Keysight Labs YouTube channel, so please go tell your friends who think they might like these videos. Tell your friends about the channel. We're super close, and I have some fun ideas for the 100,000 subscriber video, so I'd love to do that. Couple other questions. Yeah, a couple chamber questions. I mean, if you look up halt testing, there's some like standard practices. I was surprised at the rigor that goes into not only how we test this equipment before it goes live, but also just the math and the engineering experience behind calculating lifespans. So you throw a device in a chamber for 6 months and you can simulate 3 years or 5 years of actual, like, as if it were used in life. The other thing about that video is we had to film it in 2019 because we couldn't show, like, the UXR stuff we showed today. It's like, yeah, we've launched the UXR, but back when this was all very new, and we had to even like blur stuff out, in the video if you look carefully. So, yeah, thank you all again for joining this event. Let me see. People are pointing out the Easter eggs in the videos. I do hide a lot of Easter eggs in the videos, little text things, little pictures. So if you look carefully and see something flicker, you go back and check. There's probably something there. And that's it. What you should do next. So Keysight University Live, I'm officially calling it. It is over. If you want to keep learning, especially about 5G, there's a link at the bottom of the page for a 5G course. Let's take a look at it, actually. Pull it up on my screen here. Let's see. And these courses are free. They're video-based. I've written some of them myself. I'm going to go, I'm doing this live, so learn.keysight.com. There's also a link at the bottom of the page, but if you go to, let's try that again. I must have hit the wrong shortcut. I tried to hit Control-Shift-B to hide my bookmarks. There we go. So, hey, there's me. If you go to Keysight University Live, Keysight University, using the link at the bottom of the page, or just learn.keysight.com, you can see all the courses. We are going to have over 100 courses this year. There are a ton of 5G courses that Ali and I have put together. 5G new radio, there's aerospace defense, automotive, all kinds of tests and courses over there. They're all free, especially the 5G ones. I think are super cool. It's, for me, I wrote these 5G courses because it was really hard to find stuff that isn't fluff or things that are just super deep. So it's a really good intro to 5G. And then the future courses in that series get more and more technically complex. So if you start, it's a good intro and setup, and then you can dig into specific areas that are more interesting for you. So if you're commenting you want more of that 5G information, this is a good, great, fantastic place for you to go check that out. So I think I'm rambling now, so it seems like a good place to call it a day. Again, thank you to the whole team for making this happen. Thank you to each of you for attending, signing up, joining. Without you, this stuff wouldn't happen. So I'm indebted, and I have a ton of fun doing this. So keep up. Letting me know in comments, hit me up on Twitter, check us out on all the social media channels. The podcast is going to keep rolling, and we'll keep making videos and courses. Again, thank you so much on behalf of the entire team. I'm Daniel Bogdanoff, and we will see you in the future. Okay. Are we live? I was told, we're back. I know we just closed it, but here we are again. Eggplant. I mentioned something last week about how it was either cloud or app. Eggplant is a cloud-based application, so if you're interested, there's a free trial software. You can go to eggplant.com, eggplantsoftware.com, or we'll put a link in the chat for that as well. Again, so go check that out. Our video guy really wanted me to show the plush doll, so that's why we're back. Anyway, that's it. Thank you so much for joining Keysight University Live. I'll see you next time.